It's not a matter of how fast, how far, or even where we run. Whether we run 1 mile or 100 miles, we are on a journey and embracing where it leads us. This is Running for Distance. Well, thank you for joining me today or this evening, wherever you're joining me, whatever time you're joining me on Running for Distance. I have a guest with me today. That's from here in the Tulsa area. It's been a while since I've had one that's local, and that's fine. I like to go local, and I also like to go long distance. So as they would say in running, you either run short or you run long. And as for running for distance, whether it's 1 mile or 100 miles, as long as you're running and you're enjoying the journey, that's what matters the most. And so I have on the show with me today, Deanna Whitham from the Tulsa area. And Deanna, are you from Tulsa originally?
So no, I technically born in California, Stockton, California. But we moved here when I was like 2, so I don't really claim that. And then lived in Jenks for a little bit, and then grew up in Glenpool. Okay. So Tulsa area.
You're pretty much local. I mean, yeah. If you've been in Oklahoma long enough, since you've been walking, then you're right. You've been here longer than I have. So well,
there you go.
Probably. Well, you're a little younger than I am, but yeah, I've been living here, gosh, 25 years now.
Okay, yeah. So
I'm a transplant. I'm a transplant, even though I still like my roots in Kansas. If you can't beat them, join them, right? So
yeah.
So originally from California, but pretty much not born, but raised in Oklahoma. And so you were a hometown girl. And for those that aren't familiar with the Tulsa area, Jenks and Glenpool, and I'm in Sapulpa, we're all real close together. I used to live in Jenks myself. It's funny because where Jenks has their football stadium and their early childhood development center, where it stands now, is where my house once stood. And they completely just, demolished a lot of houses over there. But so I've lived in Jenks as well. And so Glenpool is right down the street from me, just 5 miles down the road from me. Sand Springs, we're all one big area in the Tulsa metropolitan area. So, but we are on the east side of the state and not the west side of the state. So Deanna, I know that you've been running for a while.
Yes.
I have never met Deanna that I know of.
Right.
It is very possible that I have been in the same area as you, because many people that I've ran with before, it's funny, before I moved up to Tulsa, people like Mark Plate, Brian Carpenter, guys like that. Even I was trying to think, bunch of different people. I was running races with them, didn't even know who they were.
Oh, wow.
And it was funny. I was like, I knew these guys before I knew these guys. So it's very likely that we probably have ran races together and just didn't even know it. But eventually, one of these times, we will get to meet face to face. It might be on Toilet Bowl Hill. Who knows?
Yeah. Who knows?
So Deanna, first of all, you have a really great name, because that's my mom's name. And so
nice.
Great namesake there. I'm real close to my mom, and so that's a great name. So
that's awesome. You don't hear a lot of Deanna.
No, you don't.
It's fun when
no,
you
don't.
hear it.
Yeah. So I have my mom. One of my coaches was named that in high school. I've known very few Deannas, and so yeah, it's especially now, right? It's an older generation name to where it's not as common, and so it's a cool name. So good job for your parents for naming you a very good name. And so let's dive into your background in running. How long have you been running, and kind of where you got your start?
Yeah. So running long distance, I would say that began in 2015. But I was talking to my dad the other day, and he reminded me that I did do some 5Ks when I was really little, because he started me in that. So the Tulsa run, I did a couple of those when I was really small. And I think one of them was the fun run, but I think I did a 5K in there too. So my dad has always been kind of into running. He's always been a sports person. I have uncles that did triathlons, so and they've done marathons and stuff. So it's been in my genes. But ultimately, and then I played soccer all my life. I did not like running though, and I know a lot of people say that who are avid runners now. They did not like running at one point. That was me. I was the one that ran the slowest on my soccer team, but if there was a soccer ball to chase, I was the fastest, you know. So that was something I did not like. As I got out of college and met my husband, he kind of was more into the running, so I kind of was like, okay, I'll run some miles with you. That's fine. And then he was challenged to do a marathon in 2015, and he really loved it, enjoyed the training, and me watching him, I was just like, I could do that. Like, that's a good challenge. Like, I was kind of done with soccer. It'll always be my first love. I love soccer, but I was just, I just was done. It was all my life. And so watching him train and watching him just really enjoy the race atmosphere and kind of wanting to be a part of that, I was like, I can do this. I'll do a half marathon. I can do that. So my first one was Route 66, 2015, first half marathon, and I was hooked after that. I mean, of course, the race atmosphere, the people, the training, even just that runner's high that we love. It got me hooked. So yeah, so I've ran since then. I was kind of trying to figure out how many half marathons I've done, and I've done 10. This weekend will be number 10, but that is with training runs as well. So I've done, I think it was 6 official, 1 virtual, and then 2 training. So it all depends on how you count those. So.
Yeah, it's you start counting your training runs as, some people feel like that doesn't count. Yeah, it does. Right. It's mileage, right? It is a distance. And if you're doing it all at one time, absolutely. Right. I mean, it's crazy to think, that people, including myself, have gone out and run. Now for me, it was like, marathons for training runs. This just ridiculous to think about that distance as a training run. It's like, what? Right. You're crazy. But yeah. I mean, even a half marathon distance as a training run, that's a haul. I mean, honestly, because for me, and of course this isn't about me, but you probably can relate is, you hit that half marathon distance, your body's feeling it. You feel it. Because it's no longer, anytime you go into the double digits, you're fatigued, you're getting fatigue on your body and you can feel it. It's not like you're going out for a 5K. Right. And as you run I know you don't have, a huge amount of running in your body. You're still fresh. You came from a soccer background and you're just embracing the beginning stages of running. And, I think that's really cool. I've come across so many people like yourself, Deanna, that are just now getting into the sport. And I get a little jealous at times because it's like, I see such zeal and joy. Don't get me wrong. I still love running. Right. But here I am, not to say that my running career is over. It's not, but I've been running since probably 4, real running, not as long, but, like you, much like you as a child, 4 or 5 years old running around the track, and then going into junior high, and going into high school and in college, I ran a lot, but it's the later years where, since 2013, I've really have ramped things up. So, the last 8 or 9 years, I've put more miles on my body than I probably would have ever thought I would. Yeah. And it really starts to take a toll on you if you're not careful, because, when you're running 20, 25 years, that's a lot of running. And the body just starts to wear down. And it's like, so like for myself, I've done 100, but now I'm wanting to go back into the half marathon. So that's what I've been training now. That's my first love as far as running goes. because it's long enough, but yet it's short enough, and you don't have to train all day long, right? And you can go out and you can get your training runs done and be able to, do stuff for the day rather than, running 5 hours a day on the weekends. There's a trade-off there.
Tired the rest of the day.
Exactly. But I will say that, the body gets tired. And so when I see someone like yourself coming up, just starting, I'm like, man, if I would have just started later. But then I was like, no, you know what? It's okay. Cause you got to start somewhere. And, much like yourself, I did play soccer and my boys play soccer. And so it's like, soccer was my very first sport that I ever played. And I still love it. And then, I transitioned to basketball and then running came. So it was like, I mixed in where it was like flag football and baseball and all these different sports, but soccer, basketball, and running, those were the three. And, like you, I didn't want to necessarily run during my other sports. And most athletes that I talked to did not want to run. Running was a form of punishment, especially in physical education class. The only running you would probably ever do, like you said, was like the fun run, or maybe like a field day where you're competing against the other kids at school. Those were the types of races that we wanted to do because it was short and sweet. We didn't train. We just went out and ran, right? All that energy, like you were saying about your son, has all this energy. It's that bundled up energy. And I heard him a minute ago. So he's definitely fighting his bedtime, which is, you go, buddy.
I know, right? I was hoping you didn't hear him, but yeah.
That's all good. It's that dad ear. It's like, I hear. But, and so I know when you ran your first half marathon, it was a great accomplishment. And I know you were ecstatic and, you continue to pile the miles on. And I've watched a lot of your progress, which it's inspiring, Deanna, to watch people that are new to the sport to where they're growing, like Larry, that we talked about. And I'm hoping to have him on sooner than later. Larry's, he's older than I am. Larry could be like, don't take offense, Larry, if you're listening. Okay. He could be like my grandpa, he's older and he's just started running in the last couple of years, but it's so cool to see people at different stages in their life starting something new. And it makes me think about, people that, and I wanted to get your thoughts on this, starting at different stages in your life. How do you feel about where you compare with other, and not to say it's a matter of comparing with other people, but, I don't know if you've seen the movie, The Greatest Showman, and, based on the story of P.T. Barnum. And he started the whole circus thing, in his 40s, right? He started late in his life. And there's a lot, like Grandma Moses, the artist, she started like in her 80s or something like that. People starting these things late in their life, but they're enjoying it. I wanted to kind of get your perspective because, you're not in high school. You're not a collegiate student. How does it feel to come into something where there's a lot of people like myself that are a little older, they've been running forever, and you're just now getting into the game?
Yeah. So mainly because like I am like newer to it. I'm coming into it, but I'm able to kind of like get your guys's perspective and advice. So I think here, let me back up. There are times where like I'm running or I'm training for a run and I do kind of get down on myself on like where I'm at and like the age I'm at. Cause in my head, I think, well, why didn't I just start running like right after college? Just really got into it. And I could be so much better. I could be, having different PRs at this point in my life. Like, I'm kind of like in a prime is what I guess a lot of people would say. But then I look back and I'm like, well, no, because I did have a child and that was important to me. I did get married and we had we had time to travel and we had time to do all this stuff. And then we found running. And I think like, for me, I mean, to me, like when I doubt that, I just think I'm doubting God's timing. And I think God really timed it right for me to start running when I started running. Sometimes I think like my prime is right now, but then when in actuality, like I talk to other people, a lot of people like will just tell me like, no, you have so much time. Like you are not in your prime. And so I get excited because I'm working really hard. I'm putting all the effort in, and I think I am showing, or I think, I am proving that I'm not there yet. Like I'm not in my prime yet. I still have some years to go, and I can put the work in. So I don't know if that makes sense. And
Yeah,
like I
absolutely.
said, like I have you guys as my friends that are able to kind of guide me and encourage me. I mean, you guys have been amazing encouragement and inspiration to kind of look at, be like, well, I know where I can be when I'm at that age. Like, you know,
Yeah,
so
it's good to hear from, other perspectives because, much like yourself, I'm the same way, Deanna, because I could be out running. I'm like, what are you doing?
yeah,
What is wrong with me? I've been running for so long. I should be able to go out and just kill this race, right?
right.
Or rock this run. And I have to be honest, Deanna, it's like Saturday I went out for, just a 5K and I struggled. And it's like,
Mhm.
it's those moments that really humbles me because
Mhm.
I'm like, you can be the most experienced runner or have the most experience in the world. And you still have those moments that takes you back to where you feel like you have never ran a mile in your life.
Right.
And it's like, what? Like there's
Mhm.
times where I've, taken some time off and I go out for a run and I feel like a baby giraffe had just been born to where I'm wobbling all over the place. My form is complete garbage. I'm like, I just need to go
Why
back
am I
home.
running? Yeah.
Why exactly? But then on the flip side is then you remember the why I run.
Yeah.
And this too shall pass. I will have bad days, but I will have more good days. And so you take the bad and it makes you appreciate the good days because you know that not every run is going to be bad. And there are times, and I will tell you, and I know you've known this and you'll have more to where you can have 1, 2, maybe 5 straight bad runs. You might have a streak of a month that was just in the dumps.
Mhm.
And it's just, you just keep plugging away. And I know you've been there with some of your training
Yeah.
and it's the ebbs and the flows, much like life. We don't ever know exactly how things are going to go, but we do the best that we can with how, that, like they say, you got to be prepared. Just like in life, you need to be prepared spiritually for what's going to happen or what you don't even know what's going to happen. Nobody knew that 2020 was going to be the way that it was. And then everybody talked like 2020 was such a horrible year. And there was many blessings from many different people. And then it's like everyone thought, well, as soon as 2021 is going to roll around, it's going to be perfect. And as we know, it has not been perfect. And it hasn't been
Right.
all roses and rainbows. There's been much like 2020. It's been a continuation. But so that's going to lead me to my next question is I know you are very strong in your faith, and I know that's very important to you. I know you are very proud of that, as you should be. One of your favorite verses is one that I really like as well, Zephaniah 3:17, which is a great verse. But I wanted to ask you, Deanna, because I know um, I love talking to other believers and those that are in tune with their faith because I feel like we have something. One, we already have something in common, even though we've never even met, but we have more than one thing in common. And we're brothers and sister and we're not even related, and which is a cool thing. But I wanted to ask you how you feel about the importance of your faith with your training, because I know with life it's important to have a relationship with Christ, but how has that transpired for you in your training, especially when you're dealing with things that are not always great?
Yeah. So I think like the things that I come to when I think about like my relationship with God and running is, I mean, first of all, I'm just thankful to God because obviously like my ability to run is from him, and I I don't know, like, I think he's given it to me for so many different reasons. One of them being, giving me the outlet of, like, obviously, like, I had a baby, and he's 2.5 years old now, and, for the first year of his life, like, I mean, I know parents go through this. Life changes so much, and you just don't even realize how much life changes. And I loved running before having him, but really, like, after having him was really when my love for running just grew even more. And I think it's because it became my me time. Um, but it also became my, like, well, I also want to run to be a good example to him, of just an active lifestyle. And so that was kind of the first initial thing that I'm thankful that God gave me running, um, because the me time also became my, what people call chair time, of, like, giving your time to God, and whether that's the beginning of your day or the end of your day, but just having that time with God, that you're either, just praise and worship, or praying, or just talking with him. Like, running became that for me. Like, I listen to music, and most of the music I listen to is up, like, praise and worship, that just brings me back to him. um, or sometimes it's my time of praying, like when I know there's prayer requests out there for my friends, or even just people that are on my heart. Like, I talk to him about all of that. um and yeah, so but anyways, that was the first thing. And the second thing I think he's given me in this is being an encouragement. I've been told many times from different people that, like, I'm good at encouraging, and so I've kind of taken that on as, like, almost like a spiritual gift. Like, um, without tooting my own horn, but, like, I enjoy encouraging people. I enjoy someone coming to me and saying, like, I was thinking about running a 5K. Like, it just uplifts me to be able to be like, oh, you can, like, you can do this. Like, let me help you. Like, whatever you need, like, I want to help you and get you there. And if they have a bad run, I kind of like what you just did with me. Like, you talk about it and you're like, it's okay. Those are going to happen. Like, I
Right.
have bad runs too. And, and it just really, like, sets me on fire to, like, get people excited about running or about doing better. So it's given me an outlet to be able to have to, what do you call it, administer my spiritual gift, I guess. So really, like, I hope that answers your question. But
Yeah.
yeah, like, I just think running has given me those things that God initially wants in my life, as, like, encouraging people, and also, like, time with him, obviously. Um, and it's been through running. And so it's been crazy that he can use something like that, that it's your physical activity, it's something you enjoy, and yet it's really God's hand in your life,
Yeah.
in so many ways.
I can
But
relate to that. It's time. And just like you said, you don't want to be prideful.
right.
Um, you're mindful of it, but then it's like, when something is good, you have to share it.
Yes.
Right. And, it's just kind of this, you want to share the gift because it inspires others, but it also encourages you, right? And iron
Mhm.
sharpens iron. And
Right.
so if you're inspiring somebody, that's uplifting to them. But the fact that you see that you're inspiring somebody encourages yourself.
Yeah.
And so then it's self-edifying, which
Mhm.
is a good thing. I mean, some people might think it's not, but it is a good thing if it's done in the right way.
Correct.
And just
Yeah.
like I love encouraging others because, well, I know from my own experiences and from others telling me, you know, that, I have a gift of encouragement. I have a gift to be able to uplift others and just do stuff. And I was like, but I'm not even trying.
Right.
And that's when you know that it's a God-given gift to where you can do something and you feel like you're in the zone, right?
Mhm.
And you're comfortable and you could do it with your eyes closed and not even have any preparation and go
Yeah.
and do it. And I was like, yeah, exactly. And
Mhm.
so that's how I feel too, is it feels good to help others.
Mhm.
It's just that ministry of helps. And yeah, it's an awesome platform to be able to do it running wise. And oftentimes it's like, I start to be like, I shouldn't post this run.
Right.
I don't need to post every single, and there's times I don't.
Right.
Because I'm like, I personally get tired of just posting all the time. I was like, golly, but I was like, I shouldn't post this one. And I was like, sometimes I don't, and then sometimes I do. And the thing is you got to look past the likes and the clicks and the comments, because it's not, there are times you'll get wrapped up in it. Yes.
Right.
But, and I have gotten caught up in it before. I'm like, man, nobody's liking my stuff. Nobody's commenting. I was like, people still see it though. And they watch. And that's how people are in our faith, is people watch how you are and how you behave, your character. And you can inspire people and you don't even know it, because of, words, actions speak louder than words. Right. And so if you are committed to doing something with your body, health wise, and you're committed to training and running, people will see that and they'll see, okay, Deanna's committed and she is somebody that you can trust, because she goes and does what she says she's going to do, and she's training for this race, and we know that she's going to do it. You inspire people and you touch people without even realizing it. And it's an awesome thing to see. It's even more awesome when you get those messages that you don't expect.
Yes.
And I got one of those from one of my childhood friends. It was right after my first attempt at 100. I got a message from him and said, "Hey man, thanks for always posting your running stuff." And I was like, oh, no problem. He's like, "You inspired me to go and run my first marathon." I was like,
oh wow.
Okay. And then there was another guy from Arkansas. I never met him. He sent me a message and he's like, "I've been following you for a long time. And I know this may be a little late, but just wanted to share with you and encourage you to keep doing what you're doing, because when you share the good with the bad." And so it was when I was taking video recordings during my race, the trials and tribulations of 100-miler, right? He's like, when you're showing your vulnerabilities, when you're showing the areas that you're challenged with, he's like, that helps people that are struggling with things to see that as a Christian, it's not all rainbows and roses, and it's not always perfect. But when we have Christ in our lives, it shows people that we have the ability to be redeemed, and he gives us strength to carry us. He's the wind beneath our wings. He's what allows us to fly and soar. And yes, sometimes we go in for a crash landing and it doesn't feel good. There are growing pains and there's trials and tribulations. And I love the parallel with life and our faith and running, because they're all three. I mean, they can all be just like Father, Son, and Holy Spirit is how I see it. It's like you got life, you got your walk, and then you have your run. And they can all intertwine, and you experience the highs and the lows and the joys and the pains when you're out there running. I know in my first marathon, and I'm sure you probably, I don't want to hear about how you felt in your first half. I loved running. I hated running. I never wanted to do it again, but I was ready to sign up for my next race. And I wanted to ask you, how did you feel when you went out and ran your first race? I know you were, as far as your first half goes, the longer distances, aside from the crowd, you get pumped up, you're feeling great.
Right.
How were you feeling, and what was going through your mind when you're running? And just kind of lead us through what you experienced.
Yeah. So my first half, it's a little while ago, so it's kind of hard to go back to that one. But yeah, I mean, I remembered loving it, hating it, like you said. But to the point of like, I mean, it just depended on what mile I was at, you get to like mile 5 and you're like, man, this is awesome. The crowds are great. I'm almost halfway, like this is great. And you kind of get to that, like, mile 9, mile 10. And, for the first one, that's a lot. Like, that's a lot of miles. I mean, I think my last training run for a half and at that time was 10. And me and my husband like decided that like that was good. Like I can do a 5K after that,
Yeah.
And which I could. And I had some friends that went ahead and did more because they were like, no, I need to know that I can do it, But I stopped at 10. And so when I got to 10, I was just like, oh my gosh, like I have a 5K left. Like, so you kind of get worried that you're not going to, do well, or you're not going to get there. Then, you're knocking down the miles, then you get to 11, then you get to 12, and then you get to 13. And it's just, I mean, I think the crazy thing about running is that no matter how many times I ran it, I always cry at the finish, which is crazy because you think like I've been here before, like, but I mean, even just thinking about it, like it's just so emotional because you're just there, and you're done, and all your training and all your, what you prepared for is there. And I mean, yeah, it's just crazy. But so I'll always cherish my first half. And then I have other halves that I have some halves that went terrible that I don't even like talking about. And I have some halves that were great.
I can relate to that. It's, like we said, the half is, for some people it's a challenge. It's 13 miles, 13.1 miles. It's not a walk in the park. I don't care who you are. It's a challenge. Of course, you step it up to the next one, and the next one you keep going higher up, right? But the thing is that's where you can get yourself into trouble, because you become confident when you've trained and ran for a long time. You think, I got this, right? And I've got this. Your first one, you'd only trained up to 10 miles, but you knew because the adrenaline and friends and your husband helped push you through.
Right.
I will say there was one half that the Jinx half in 2013. I was it 2013? I want to say it was 2013. Maybe it's 2015. I don't remember. That's why I don't remember.
Yeah.
Okay, because here's the thing. As we both know, you can train and put the miles in. You've done all the work. The weather can be as perfect as possible. You're feeling great, and you have an absolute horrible race.
It happens.
And that's happened to me because I went into that Jinx half marathon. I was trained. I felt great. Done everything I was supposed to do. That morning was about 62 degrees.
Nice.
Much like yesterday, except just not as warm. Clear blue skies, sun was shining, little light breeze blowing, lined up, gun goes off. I get maybe a half mile to a mile into the race, and the wheels fell off.
Oh, no.
Mentally, I was completely trashed because in my mind, I was going for a PR.
Oh.
And I put so much emphasis on, I'm going to go PR this race. My first half marathon is still my PR.
Oh.
Okay. In college.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
It's like my first one was, and I was like, why would it be my first one is still, well, I can tell you is because that was in college and I was in the best shape of my life. It's probably part of it.
That matters.
But you can prepare for everything and still fall flat on your face. But as we both know, it doesn't matter how many times you fall down, it's how many times you get back up, right? And so how have you dealt with adversity, Deanna, when you have that race, like you just talked about, you don't want to remember those, but yet you do want to remember them because they help you get through the next time that you have challenges. How have you handled that? And what do you do to help get yourself through that funk? Because I know sometimes when you have a bad race or bad training runs, it can put you in a funk or put you in a mood. And, some people get to where they don't even want to run because they're frustrated.
Right. I think for me, like, so my worst race, I'll just kind of give you an idea. I can't remember what number it was. I think it was number 4, half marathon number 4, was Central Park half marathon was one I was so excited about. And because, you get to run in Central Park. Like, that's cool.
Yeah, it's just cool. Yeah.
We went to
the
New
crowd
York.
And
yes. And we enjoyed it. It was great. But for some reason, we also went and we walked around New York City the first day, and then we had the half marathon. So I will say I do not recommend that. I recommend having your half marathon and then enjoying the sights. But to say that, I went out and I felt great, kind of the same thing. The weather was great. It was chilly because it was New York, and I think it was February. So it was a little colder, but I was dressed for it and everything. And my husband was actually going to run with me. And so I was excited because I was like, cool, like he can push me just that much, harder to kind of, I wasn't aiming for a super PR, but I was like, if I got one, cool, and if he's running with me, it's a good chance that I can. And I mean, it was just mile 6, I was done. That's when, for some reason, my legs were done. For some reason, I was tired. And I could not pick them back up. Like, I walked for a second because I just felt like I needed to. And that walk right there just killed it the rest of the run. And it was devastating because it was supposed to be such a cool experience.
Mm-hmm.
And it ended up being like, we can laugh about it now because it's been years, but it definitely was a run where we did not talk about it. Like, we walked basically the rest of the way, and my husband is very competitive, and so he did not like that we had to walk. I am super competitive, so the fact that I was the reason we had to walk was just devastating. So we literally, we finished, we got the medal, and we just walked back to our hotel, and we just were like, that was ridiculous.
Not another word was spoken.
Yeah, no, pretty much. Yeah. And so, like I said, now I can look back at it and laugh at it and learn from it. But so the learning from it, it took a little while, but I think it's just that remembering why you run. It's okay to take time. Like I think I did take time after that. I didn't run a half marathon until after I had a child. So that was literally like, I think that was February. Found out I was pregnant in like December, and then had Oliver in August. And then, I didn't run
several months.
Oh yeah. Years. Like I think it was at least a year and a half that I didn't even think about another half marathon. So I think that's okay to take that time. Sure. Because obviously, like, you don't want to just jump into it with negative thoughts. And I think that's what I told myself, just that, like, I want to enjoy running still. And if I just jump into it now, like, I'm not going to enjoy it. So taking that time is okay. But then also coming back to, like, ultimately, do I want to be a runner? Is this something I enjoy? Is this something I want to do? And when I had my child and decided that I did want to continue running, that was my why, was that, like, that's what I want to do. I do want to be a runner. So I was able to kind of get back into it and kind of start training again. And I did do another half marathon. It was a better experience. It was local, which is fine. It was actually the Jenks half that I did that in. Can't remember the year now. Was it 19? Maybe. Yeah, it would have been 2019. And yeah, so I think just that remembering the why, being thankful that you can, because that's the other thing. There are times, like, if I didn't get back into it, who knows, like, where I would be now, and who knows, sure, like, if I would even be able to. And so just being thankful, remembering why you love it. And
absolutely. Yeah. You hit something that's very important. Yeah. As far as getting out and getting back in, I did a podcast a couple weeks ago with one of my roommates from college, one of my teammates, where he got burned out and he shut it down, and he's had a lot of health issues, gained a lot of weight, and he's just now getting back. 25 years later, he's finally getting the desire, because he was so burned out. He just said, "I'm done." And it's like, it's taken all this time, but like you said, the why, it's taken him to the point where his grandson, that he just had a grandson. And I was like, man, that makes me feel old that you're having grandkids now. But he wants to have longevity in his life. He wants to be there for him. He wants to be able to show his grandson, how to be healthy. So he's got a why again to start training, right? He's walking. He's got some, he's dealing with some health issues with his feet, but he's at least getting engaged and going out and doing it again. Yeah. So you said the why, and that is so important. That's something I've talked about many times on here, and I probably will continue to do that, because if you do not know what your why is, I'm not going to beat somebody up or, judge somebody if they don't know what their why. If they want to be a casual runner, and they just go out and they run occasionally here or there. That's fine. Their why could be, I just want to run because I enjoy running. Simple as that.
Yeah.
But for those that are more serious, more competitive, like ourselves, or even those that want to really expand into it, the why is so important. And I didn't really ever have a true why for many, many years, up until even before I ran my 100 was, my coach was like, you got to identify your why. And I kind of knew what it was, but it's one of those unspoken things, right? Where, I knew in my mind kind of why I wanted to run. They said, you need to write it out. And I was like, why? And there's the why. Why? Because he's like, when you write it out and you post it somewhere, just like memorizing a Bible verse, right? Is when you see it, you remember it. If you see it, you're going to speak it out and you're going to believe it and you're going to just have that interaction every day, reminding yourself why you do this. Yes. So then it was like, okay, I've written out my why. Now I truly know what my why is. And he's like, you will have that in your memory. So when you're struggling and you're hating running at the moment, you'll remember your why and it'll help you push through. Yeah. And it works. I mean, it's not always easy, but it does help you because, I mean, in those dark moments, you've got to have something to help pull you out. And not to say that God can't pull you out, but God does allow you to go through things too. And it's like, okay, Lord, why are you having me go through this? And it's like, well, you have trials and tribulations and you call unto me and I'll show you great and mighty things that you don't know yet. Yeah. And which means you are going to finish, but you have to persevere and you have to go through the muck and the mire to get to that, the finish line. And it's not always easy, but if you have if you've identified a why for running or your why you want to live the way you do, it's important because, you've got to have a why, regardless of what you're doing, whatever hobby it is, whatever job that you're doing. Why are you a stay-at-home mom? Well, because you want to raise your son, right? You want to have a good home influence. Because I know you worked before that. Why do I want to do this? Well, because I want to do different things. Why do you want to write a book? Just different things. People identify it, write it down, and then apply it. Mm-hmm. Because as we both know, faith without works is dead. Right. So I can have the faith of knowing I'm going to go out and run a half marathon. I've got the faith to do it. But if I don't go and put the training into it,
it's not happening.
The chances of me finishing,
right.
I could go out and walk the thing. Absolutely.
True.
But I'm not going to achieve the results that I want because I haven't put in the work. It's like the old mindset I used to have is, and I know a lot of kids, most kids didn't like practice. And I know you could relate to this with soccer. I hated practice, but I loved the game. I wanted to play the game. But in order to be successful in the game and in order to get more playing time in that game, you got to put in the hard work and practice and prove yourself. And so then it was like, why do you want to play? Well, because I want to, I want to be a starter. Why? It's that why.
There's always a why.
Yes. And when in my job as a project manager or as an analyst, and you're asking questions to get to the answer, they always say why. And guess what? You flip it back and it's that child. When Oliver says, you say, Oliver, no. And he probably will say, but why, mommy? No cookies before dinner. Why? Something like that. Yeah. You identify the why and he learns.
That makes sense. Mm-hmm.
It's like it comes all the way back to everything we learned before kindergarten, honestly, or even in kindergarten. And it always comes back to why. Why do you want to do this? Because, well, and you just spell it out. I was going to ask you what, we know why you like to run now. You've identified that why. When, you got that who, what, why, when, where. Right. When do you like to run? Because everybody has a different, as you probably have noticed, one of my nicknames is, in case you didn't know already, and for those listening, is the Midnight Express. Why have you been nicknamed the Midnight Express? Well, you can thank some of our local runners for that. It's because I run at night, and that's my me time. I'm a late night owl, and I like running late at night. That's when I can clear my mind and clear my thoughts. It's also convenient because I don't have to deal with kids. The kids are in bed, and I can just go. When do you like to run?
It's a good question. I'm actually probably still kind of trying to figure that out because sometimes it's my time is not my own time.
Sure.
So right now it's kind of when I can. So last year I trained for a marathon and ended up having to do it virtually. And this year I realized that time was different and I didn't know why. I was like, why was I able to train so well last year and this year not? And I realized that I had family members that weren't working because of COVID that were able to help me with my little guy. And it was just kind of like, oh, wow. Okay. So more sacrifice has to come into now. So I will say I haven't decided what is my favorite time. But when I need to run in the morning, I run in the morning. When I'm able to run in the evening when my husband gets off work, I enjoy that. So that's probably my favorite time when I can. But there are times, I mean, just what was it, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I wasn't able to run in the morning because of just time constraints and stuff. And I was hoping to run around 10 a.m. That didn't happen. So 1 o'clock rolled around and I was like, okay, I think I can start getting, Oliver ready and I can take him over to my mom's. And well, I didn't get started until like 3. And that's when the sun came out and it was not ideal at all. And I was actually pretty sad that happened because everybody, of course, you see everyone posting how beautiful of a morning it was. And,
Of course.
And so I was very upset about that. But I mean, that's my life right now, is just kind of trying to get my runs in when I can. So ultimately, as my kid gets older, and if we have another one as that one gets older, I'll be able to find that time. But right now it's when I can.
That's good. I mean, that's honest. You learn to adjust, right? And as somebody that's been running forever, it's like in college we had to get up at the crack of dawn to go run, and then we ran again in the afternoon. I'm not a morning person for the most part. I like my sleep. And when I was training for my 100, I was having to get up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning to go run on a Saturday or Sunday morning. Getting up at 5 to go run till 10 o'clock, just
not fun.
It wasn't fun. It was the job that I was signed up for at the time.
Right.
There were parts of it that I did like, but I just did not look forward to that 5-hour run. But I also knew I had to do it in the morning because there is no way, family-wise, that I would be able to go out and run for 5 hours, starting at say 5 or 6 in the evening and run till 11 o'clock at night. There's no way. No, not going to happen. And so, one, I prefer to run at night because the sun has gone down. Me and the sun, depends on the weather, depends on the temperature. Like yesterday, 85 degrees outside, I would have melted. And not to say that I run really on the hot side. And so when the temperatures are higher, I get hot easy. And, when you're having to run a harder workout, I'm like, man, I don't know how I did it when I was in school, because we used to go out, it's almost 100 degrees outside and we're running, long mileage in the heat. And I just did not like it. But I'll go out and run in the morning because there is something special about a sunrise in the morning. It's beautiful. Oklahoma, I will have to say Oklahoma has some of the most beautiful sunrises and some of the most beautiful sunsets.
I agree.
And so, like you said, though, it doesn't matter what time of day it is, as long as I can go run. Because when life gets, morning a lot of times is the best on the weekend for me to try to get mileage in, because as you know, family activities, things going on, the later in the day it gets, because you're like, people are saying, oh, it's a beautiful morning.
Right.
And you're wanting to run at 1. And by the time you got started, it was 3. And you know how it goes. It's like, yeah, I'll do it here in a little bit. And then 4 hours later, it's like, where'd the day go?
Right.
And now I got to go and get my run in later than I wanted to. And that happened to me last week when we had the storms roll in.
Oh, no.
And I should have gotten my run in earlier in the day. I knew storms were possible that night.
Yeah.
And the time that it lined up, guess what? Storms
Right.
are happening. And by the time all the storms cleared, it was already like 10 o'clock, which that's prime time for me, but I wasn't feeling it. I was already out of it. I was relaxed, laying on the floor watching some TV. Guess what?
Yep.
And that's when I made the decision. And I'm comfortable with this, Deanna, because you learn to balance, right? And one run is not going to make your training or break your training. Right. And you learn to be a balanced runner, because my family and my faith comes first. And if I'm having to trade those things for my run, then it's interfering, right? And that balance gets off. And when balance gets off, you're going to be off, whether it's spiritually or whether it's physically or mentally. You got to stay in balance. And I was comfortable and I was enjoying time with the family. I was like, you know what? It's only a 4-mile run. I'm not even doing it.
Yeah.
And this year I have done more of that. I wake up and I'm like, I'm not running this morning. No, I have no desire. But I'm okay with it because I'm comfortable with it now, because I've ran all the distances that I really need to run in my lifetime. Mm-hmm. I don't have anything to necessarily prove other than what I want to prove for myself. If I don't want to run, I don't need to run. Yeah. I don't want to be dependent on the run. I love it, and I don't want it to become a job, and that has become like that at times. And it can also become like an idol too. And I know you would probably agree with this, because you exercise so much, you run so much, that's all you're thinking about. And granted, it is a great time to worship. It is a great time to pray. But there are times where I go with good intentions, and those intentions don't always pan out. And I'm like, I was going to pray during my run, and I didn't, and so then you lose focus, and it's like, oh, but don't blast yourself and don't beat yourself up because you didn't. Right. It's like, okay.
Right. Then you just got to find other time. But yeah.
Sacrifices. It's all about sacrifice,
Really is.
Because when you're training for a race, especially, you have to sacrifice something, whether it's you're sacrificing your sleep, you're sacrificing, you might miss a game that you really want to watch. You sacrifice time with your family. You sacrifice other me time, because I don't know what other hobbies you might have, but there's things that I enjoy doing. And I was like, man, I couldn't do that today. I couldn't go and do this because I was training for my race. And that's when you make that commitment. If you paid for the race, you go and train and you do it.
Right.
But if you didn't pay for the race, then I don't have that commitment. I don't have skin in the game. So then that's where I get kind of wishy-washy in my training, because I was like, I'm not really training for anything. So whatever.
Yeah.
You just enjoy the run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Makes sense.
Do you prefer warmer temperatures or do you prefer the colder?
So I prefer cold. For a while, I hated both. But then I just realized kind of in my training of my marathon is that, like, if you're really into this, if you're really serious about it, rain shouldn't bother you, cold shouldn't bother you, heat really shouldn't bother you. But I mean, your body does act different in heat, and for me it does. My husband loves heat. He loves going out and just doing an amazing workout and sweating and all that. He loves it. I go out there and I'm like 1 mile into it and I'm like, nope, I'm dead. I can't do this. So heat is not my favorite. However, last year in the heat, I progressed quite a bit with like my speed and stuff. So I know the benefit. I've seen it. It's just that mental of doing it. So I do prefer cold. Cold is my probably like tonight with, I think, what was it, like 50s, like high 40s. So that's my
It's funny you say that, because from the research and stuff I've done and with people that I've trained with, temperatures between about 45 and 55 degrees is the optimal performance temperature for most people. And I'm right there with you. Is if it's between I can do some 30s, but preferably if it's in the low 40s to about 55 degrees, that is perfect weather, because my body warms up just enough to keep me warm and I don't get cold. And you should be a little uncomfortable at the beginning. You don't want to be too warm, because if you're too warm, you're going to have to strip the layers off, and then you're going to get too hot, and then you're going to get too cold. But yeah, I'm just like that. It's like, give me the colder weather, the cooler weather. Temperatures like today, the whole day, perfect. A little bit of a breeze blowing, perfect. Yesterday,
overcast.
I know yesterday was beautiful. Beautiful for a lot of things. Just for me, not running, because I would have melted, like I said. But like you also pointed out, when you're training for a race, and I do this, and people call me crazy, but especially now, not as many people do it for a half marathon or a marathon per se. But when you start getting into the upper distances where you are going to be out for the entire day, into the evening, into the next day, you have to train in all conditions, because you don't know what you're going to be dealt. Most times a half marathon, you have a 2-hour window, you're good. You're probably not going to have any adverse weather conditions. Marathon, probably within a 5-hour window, you're not going to have any big weather, but you're out there for 12, 14 hours. You're going to have, so heavy torrential downpours in the rain, the excessive cold, the wind, snow, sleet, the extreme heat. You have to be able to train in the heat, because you never know. Because as we both know, here in Tulsa and here in Oklahoma, the weather, give it 5 minutes, it'll change. And I know there's times like Route 66, one year was beautiful weather and everybody loved it. It was like Indian summer, 70 degrees. The next year it was like 18, 19 degrees, right? The go short, go long, go very long. This last year was decent weather. If I remember correctly, I didn't run it, but
this year was good. This year was really good.
I ran it in 2019, and 2019, that's one of those races that it really helped me develop myself mentally tough for my 100 training, because you had to just go into the adverse conditions. But it was 28 degrees. The wind chill was in the single digits. And when I ran across 71st Street Bridge, it felt like an icy wind tunnel.
Oh gosh.
And I did the 50K. Okay. One lap around, I was a frozen popsicle, and I went into the bathroom over at the, that's the west side of the river, over by the soccer fields, over in that area.
Oh, okay. Yes, I know what you're talking about.
Went into the bathroom where it was heated, and I sat in there for like 15 minutes to warm up.
Yeah.
And I contemplated, do I go on?
Yeah.
And I was warmed up enough, and then I was like, I went back out into it. But then I said, okay, I got to go. I got to do this. I was real close to not going back out. So you got to train in the adverse conditions, because it makes you a stronger runner. Yeah. Do I enjoy it? No. Nobody in their right mind wants to go out and run in the single digits when you're freezing cold. I mean, no, that's not ideal. You just dream about sunshine and the beach, things like that. But it makes you mentally tougher, and you can deal with those things, just like in life. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And so it's like, I was like, this might kill me, because if I get too cold, I might have hypothermia. And if I get too hot, I might completely die of heat stroke, which I have had heat stroke before, and it's not fun. And so that's probably another reason why I don't like running in the heat, because I'm more susceptible to it now that I've had that. But before I let you go, time flies, and I could sit here all night and talk about running and everything that comes in between. What's in the agenda for you coming up, Deanna? I know, 2021 is a little different than last year. Some of the races are starting to open back up for several people. I know last year you had to run Oklahoma City virtually, and that was kind of a bummer, but it's a unique experience. You still got your first marathon done with the help of your family, which was great. But what do you have on the agenda for this next half of the year?
Yeah, so right now I am currently in taper week of a half marathon. So
That's
I've
what I
been,
thought.
yeah, so
You're doing
I've
the
been,
Golden Triller, right?
yes, yes. And it'll be my first time doing that race. But the course is the same as the Q last year. So I kind of know what's to come. But yeah, so that's my next goal race. And my hope is the sub 2 hour half. However, a PR would be lovely, but I'm going to go out and just do my best because that's all we can do.
That's right.
Kind of like what you talked about, race day comes and you don't know what the weather's going to bring. You don't know what's going to happen. And so my mindset right now is, I'm coming into taper week. I'm just going to go do my best. I've done well. I feel confident in my training. But Saturday comes and we'll see. So yeah, so that's this Saturday, and I'm excited. I'm excited to get out there and just like I said, do my best.
Hay is in the barn, as they would say.
Yeah,
You're ready.
exactly.
You got anything else later in the year?
So my next thought is Route 66 full, because I've done my marathon and I'm very proud of that. And like we've talked about, I mean that was a race that I think I needed because it proved to me my mental strength. It also gave me a new confidence that I never had before. Um, and so I know I can do it. Now I just want the in-person finish line
Absolutely.
experience.
I will have to say the virtual versus the real thing, it's night and day because, yeah, you go out and run virtually, you've accomplished something.
Right,
Absolutely.
right.
But from somebody that has ran the Route 66,
Yeah,
it is one giant party. Um,
talk about it.
it is a fun race, and I hope they have it. I mean, they're planning on having it in person.
So far, yep,
Um,
they talked about that. So
it is a great one to definitely go out and run for your first in person. Absolutely.
yeah,
Um, that's a great race. I have had the privilege of running it a couple of times and running a half.
yeah,
Hopefully, you'll have great weather. And
yeah. But hey, like we talked about,
that's right. Prepare for the worst, and
yeah.
you never know what you're going to end up getting. But one last thing is what's one thing that you would like to tell anybody that's wanting to get into running or anybody that is currently running? It doesn't matter whether you're a new runner or an seasoned runner like myself or many others that are out there. What's one piece of advice coming from you that you would like to offer to others?
Whew, I think the first thing that comes to my head, like when you were just now saying, like, what would you like to say? Um, I just want to say you can do it. I think a lot of people fear and stress over the fact that they don't think they can. A lot of people, you can talk to a lot of non-runners or people who are starting runners. They say, I want to, but I don't think I can. Or, I will say I was one of those. I, ran 5Ks, 10Ks, and I never do a half marathon. Did a half marathon. Never will do a marathon. No way. Like half marathon is it. And I did a marathon. So I will just say, like, you can. Like, yes, there may be different, you can figure out which distance is your distance, but you can do it. If you find the right people to surround yourself with, if you find your why, those things are important, and that will get you to where you want to be. If you want to run, you can run. So that's the first thing that comes to my head. Second thing, I just want to say, like we've been talking about, just like life in running, you're going to have trials, you're going to hit bumps, you're going to hit, those things, and it's okay. We all do. So I will say that too. Like, there's even one of my other favorite verses in the Bible is John 16:33, and it says, Jesus himself says, you're going to have trouble in this world. And he says, but take heart because he's overcome the world. And that's something that always, always just gives me so much encouragement because um, even in running, in life and running, everyone has problems, everyone has struggles. You're not alone, um, and you can get through it. And so in life and in running, you can get through it, and you will. So
Absolutely. Good stuff. Absolutely. Yeah. And never say never, because if you say never, guess what?
It will happen. Literally.
I said that I would never run a marathon.
Same here.
And I ran my marathon, and then I said I will never run another one.
Right?
Yeah, famous last words.
Right.
Because now, marathon distance or greater, because I have to say greater now, 16.
Wow.
So, you know, that's 100 miler, 2 other attempted 100 milers, 100K, a 50 miler, a couple 50Ks, a couple of marathons. Yeah, it starts to add up, and it's like, that's a lot of miles on my body.
A lot of miles that you never were going to do. And you did.
That's exactly right. Because never say never, because here's the thing is, you know, you can do anything. And I know we've talked about this, and I'm going to wrap this up, but you can do anything you put your mind to, because God gives us the desires of our heart. And if you go out and you desire it and you really want to do it, you can go out and do it. Doesn't matter how fast, it doesn't matter how slow. As we would always say, run the mile that you're in, 1 foot in front of the other. And if you have to walk, there is no shame in walking, guys, because here's the thing. I've gone out and done a 100 miler. Okay. I didn't run that whole 100 miles. I probably walked half of it. And people will say, but you weren't running the whole time. Running a race like that, it's called endurance, and you're persevering till the end. And as we both know, in our race with life, there's times that it's a sprint. There's just times that it's a marathon. And life in itself is a marathon, and you can't do it all in one fast sprint. You have to take your time and pace yourself. And that's the important thing, is pacing yourself. So if you want to do something, put your mind to it, make a plan, find your why, and go out and get it done. Don't make excuses. Be stronger than your excuses. Well, guys, I appreciate you joining me tonight. Thank you, Deanna, for joining me. I appreciate you being on here. It's been a joy to talk to you, and hopefully we'll be able to meet sooner than later. And I wish you all the best Saturday, that you will run like the wind, and that you will have a great race. And I look forward to seeing how you do. Yeah, and as I tell everybody, we will see you down the trail, and take care.
Awesome.